Hello, friends. Welcome to the story of America. Today, we begin a journey to learn about the history of the United States. This story is made to help you learn English by listening and speaking with simple words and clear ideas. By the end of this story, you will understand how America was discovered, who lived here first, the struggles people faced, and how the country became strong. Don't worry, we will keep it fun and easy to follow step by step. Let's start with a big question. Who found America? The answer goes far back in time. Around 15,000 years ago, people known as Native Americans were already living here. They were the first people to call this land home. These Native Americans came from Asia. They crossed a land bridge that connected Asia to North America. They hunted animals and picked plants. They built houses and made tools. They lived close to nature and had many different tribes and cultures. Each tribe had its own way of life. Some lived in forests, some near rivers, and others in open plains. They respected the land and used only what they needed. They shared stories, danced, and taught their children about their traditions. But the part of history that people often talk about started much later. In the year 1492, an explorer named Christopher Columbus left Spain by ship. He was trying to find a new way to reach Asia by sailing west across the ocean. Columbus was Italian, but the trip was paid for by the King and Queen of Spain. Their names were Ferdinand and Isabella. After many weeks at sea, Columbus landed on land. He thought he had reached India, but it was actually a new continent. Because of his mistake, Columbus called the people he met Indians. This name stayed for a long time, even though it was not correct. He had found part of what we now call the Americas, but he did not know it yet. Columbus was not the first European to come to this land. About 500 years earlier, Viking explorers led by Leif Erikson had reached what we now call Canada. But their stay was short, and they left after a while. Even though the Vikings came first, Columbus is remembered more because his trip made many people in Europe interested in exploring this new world. Soon, many more ships started crossing the ocean from Europe to America. Explorers and settlers came from different European countries like Spain, France, and England. Each group wanted to take land and find riches. They brought new foods, animals, and tools. But sadly, they also brought diseases that hurt native people badly. These new illnesses spread quickly, and many Native Americans died because they had never been exposed to them before. This was a very sad and painful time. Life changed forever for the people who had lived here for thousands of years. In 1607, the English built their first permanent town in America. It was called Jamestown, and it was in what is now the state of Virginia. Life there was hard. Winters were cold, food was low, and many people became sick. But the settlers worked hard and stayed strong. Soon, more English people came to America. They were looking for a better life. Some wanted land, some wanted jobs, and some wanted to practice their religion freely without fear or punishment. In 1620, a special group called the Pilgrims came from England. They left their country because they were not allowed to follow their religion the way they wanted. They hoped to find peace and freedom in the New World. The Pilgrims came on a ship called the Mayflower. After a long and difficult trip, they landed in what we now call Massachusetts. Life was not easy. It was cold, and they did not have much food or shelter. The Native Americans helped them survive that first winter. They showed them how to plant corn and catch fish. The Pilgrims were thankful, so they shared a big meal with the Native Americans. This was the first Thanksgiving. As time passed, more and more people came from Europe. They built homes, farms, and small towns. America was slowly growing. But with this growth came many problems, including conflict with the Native Americans and struggles between different groups of settlers. This is how the story of America began, from the first people who walked across the land to the explorers who sailed the seas, to the settlers who came to start a new life. Each one played a part in building this country. In the next part of the story, we will learn why people from all over the world wanted to come to America and how the first colonies started to form. It's a story full of hope, hard work, and the dream for a better life. The Pilgrims had left England because they were not allowed to follow their religion freely. They wanted to pray in their own way. When they arrived in America, they landed in a place we now call Massachusetts and started a new life. That first year was very hard for them. The weather was cold, and they didn't have enough food. Some Native Americans helped them survive by teaching them how to plant crops and hunt. Later, they shared a meal to give thanks. This meal became known as the first Thanksgiving. It was a time for the Pilgrims and Native Americans to eat together and be thankful. It is still remembered today as a holiday where families share food and give thanks for what they have. As more people arrived in America, they came with big dreams. By the 1700s, many people in Europe saw America as a land of opportunity. They believed they could find freedom, own land, and build a better future for their families. However, life in America was not always easy. Different countries like England, France, and Spain wanted to control the land. They sent soldiers and ships to fight over it. These battles made life hard for the people who were already living there. By the middle of the 1700s, there were 13 colonies along the east coast of what is now the United States. These colonies were started by people from Europe and were grouped into 3 main areas based on location and culture. The first group was called New England. This area had places like Massachusetts and Connecticut. The land had forests and rivers. People fished, farmed small pieces of land, and worked together in tight communities. Life was simple but strong. The second group was the Middle Colonies, including New York and Pennsylvania. This area had rich soil and was called the breadbasket because it grew lots of wheat and grain. People here had many different backgrounds, languages, and religions. The third group was the Southern Colonies, such as Virginia and Georgia. These colonies had warm weather and large farms called plantations. They grew crops like tobacco, rice, and cotton. These farms made a lot of money, but in a very sad way, much of the hard work on these farms was done by enslaved Africans. These people were taken from Africa by force and brought to America in terrible conditions. They had no freedom and were treated like property, which was very cruel and wrong. Life in the colonies was full of hard work. People had to build their homes, grow their own food, and stay warm during cold winters. Families worked from morning to night. Children helped their parents instead of going to school. Most people lived in small wooden homes. They cooked over fire and used candles for light. Only a few children were able to learn reading and writing, but many people were hopeful. They believed life in America would give them freedom. Some colonies, like Pennsylvania, were started to protect people of all religions. These places welcomed everyone, no matter how they prayed. People who had been treated badly in Europe came to these colonies to live in peace and safety. Even though the colonists lived in America, they were still ruled by Britain. The King of England, King George III, made the laws for them. The people in the colonies had to pay high taxes to Britain, but had no say in the government. The colonists became very angry. They said, "No taxation without representation," which means they did not want to pay taxes unless they could help make the laws. They believed they should have a voice in the decisions that affected them. One famous event showed this anger. In 1773, a group of colonists dressed up like Native Americans. They went on to British ships and threw boxes of tea into the sea. This was called the Boston Tea Party. It was a protest against the tea tax. By the mid-1700s, many people in the colonies were tired of British control. They wanted the right to make their own choices and live in freedom. They believed they should be able to govern themselves and not be ruled from far away. In 1775, a war began between the American colonies and Britain. This war was called the American Revolution. The people fighting for freedom were called the colonists or patriots. They believed they were fighting for their rights and future. George Washington became the leader of the American Army. He was strong, brave, and respected. Many people followed him and believed in his dream for a free America. The war was hard, but they were ready to fight for their freedom. The colonists were not trained soldiers. They were farmers, shopkeepers, and workers, but they had something powerful, hope, and the belief in a better life. This belief gave them strength to stand up against one of the strongest armies in the world. As the war continued, more people joined the fight. They knew that freedom was not easy to win, but it was worth it. The battle between the colonies and Britain would decide the future of America and whether it would become an independent country. One very important man in American history was Thomas Jefferson. He was a smart leader and a strong writer. In 1776, he wrote a document called the Declaration of Independence. It became one of the most famous papers in the world. The Declaration of Independence was written on July 4th, 1776. It said that the American colonies were no longer part of Britain. It also said that all people have the right to live free, be happy, and follow their dreams. This was a very brave step. By writing this document, the colonies were saying they no longer followed the king. It also meant they were going to fight to become their own country. This made the war with Britain more serious. The British Army was large, well-trained, and had many weapons. The American colonists were not trained soldiers. They were farmers, shopkeepers, and workers. But they believed strongly in freedom, and that gave them courage to fight for what they wanted. The colonists had little money and not many supplies. But they did not give up. They were helped by France, which sent them soldiers, guns, and ships. This support gave the American army a better chance to win the war. After many years of battles, the Americans finally won an important fight in Yorktown, Virginia, in 1781. This battle changed everything. The British Army was weak, and the American Army felt stronger and more hopeful than ever before. 2 years later, in 1783, Britain finally accepted that the colonies were free. This was the official end of the war. The United States of America was now a new and independent country with its own future ahead. The leaders of the new country wanted to create a strong government. They wrote a special document called the Constitution. It explained how the country should be run. It gave power to the people and set rules for fair leadership. In 1789, George Washington became the first president of the United States. People respected him and believed he would lead the country well. He helped shape the early days of America with wisdom, strength, and honesty. The new country was based on important ideas like freedom, fairness, and democracy. But these ideas did not include everyone at that time. Many people, especially women, enslaved people, and Native Americans, did not have the same rights or freedom. It would take many years of hard work and protest for these groups to gain equal rights. Still, the beginning of the United States gave hope to people around the world who wanted freedom and the chance to build a better life. After the war, America was small. It had only 13 states along the East Coast. But many Americans dreamed of growing the country. They wanted to move west, explore new places, and build homes and farms on the land. In 1803, something amazing happened. President Thomas Jefferson bought a huge area of land from France. This was called the Louisiana Purchase. It doubled the size of the United States and gave people more space to farm, trade, and live. This new land stretched from the Mississippi River all the way to the Rocky Mountains. People were excited to explore it. They believed it was a land full of promise and opportunity. The country was ready to grow and discover new places. To learn more about this land, Jefferson sent two men, Lewis and Clark, on a long journey. They explored rivers, forests, and mountains. A Native American woman named Sacagawea helped them. She showed them the way and helped them talk to other tribes. Lewis and Clark wrote notes and made maps as they traveled. They met many Native American tribes along the way. Some helped them, while others were unsure. Still, the journey was a big success and helped Americans learn about the Western lands. As more families moved west, they believed it was their right to spread across the whole country. This idea was called manifest destiny. It meant they thought it was their duty to fill the land from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific. Many people packed their things into wagons and traveled west. They faced dangers like wild animals, rough weather, and sickness. But they were hopeful and brave. They wanted land, freedom, and a better life for their children. However, this move to the west caused great pain for Native Americans. Many tribes were forced off their land. They were pushed into small areas called reservations. Their homes, traditions, and ways of life were lost or changed forever. Even though America was growing, a dark and painful part of history continued. Slavery was still happening in many places. Enslaved Africans were forced to work on farms, especially in the South. They had no freedom and were treated very badly. These enslaved people worked long hours in the sun. They lived in small houses and were not paid. They could not leave or make their own choices. It was a cruel system, and many people began to speak out against it. The new country had many good ideas, but not all people were treated equally. Still, America was growing and changing. It was a land of hope, dreams, and also many struggles. The next chapters would bring more challenges and more chances for change. Many Americans believed it was their destiny to spread across all of North America. They thought it was their right to move west and build new homes. This idea became very popular and was known as manifest destiny. Families packed their belongings into wooden wagons. They left their towns and headed west, looking for land and a better life. The trip was long and full of danger. They crossed rivers, climbed mountains, and dealt with bad weather and wild animals. Even though it was a time of hope for some, it was a time of pain for others. Native American tribes were pushed off their lands. They were forced to leave the places where their families had lived for hundreds of years. The government made Native people move to small areas called reservations. These places were far from their homes. Many lost their farms, animals, and traditions. Their way of life changed forever, and this caused great sadness and anger. While America was growing, the South became rich from farming. Big farms called plantations grew crops like cotton and tobacco. These farms made a lot of money, but only because enslaved Africans were forced to do all the hard work. These enslaved people were taken from Africa against their will. They were put on ships and brought to America in terrible conditions. Many died on the way. Those who survived were sold like property and made to work without pay or rights. Slavery was very cruel. Enslaved people worked long days in the hot sun. They lived in small, poor houses. Families were often separated. People were punished if they tried to run away or even if they tried to rest without permission. By the middle of the 1800s, the United States was divided. The North and the South had different ways of life. People in the North believed slavery was wrong. Most of them worked in factories or owned small farms and didn't use slaves. The South depended on slavery to keep its farms running. Southern plantation owners said their economy would fail without enslaved workers. This caused big arguments. People in the North and South started to feel like they were from two different countries. More people in the North started to speak out against slavery. They were called abolitionists. These brave men and women wanted slavery to end. They gave speeches, wrote books, and helped enslaved people escape to freedom in the North. One of the most famous abolitionists was Harriet Tubman. She had escaped from slavery herself and went back many times to help others. She used secret paths and safe houses to guide people north. This was called the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was not a real railroad. It was a network of kind people who helped enslaved people travel in secret. They gave them food, shelter, and hope. Harriet Tubman became a hero for her courage and strength. Another powerful voice was Frederick Douglass. He had also been enslaved, but escaped. He became a strong speaker and writer. He told his story to the world and showed how terrible slavery was. His words changed many hearts and minds. Books were also used to fight slavery. A woman named Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin. It told the sad story of a slave's life. This book helped people in the North understand the pain slavery caused. As time went on, the fight between the North and South grew worse. By the 1860s, the two sides could no longer agree. The North wanted to stop slavery, while the South wanted to keep it and protect their way of life. In 1861, the conflict reached a breaking point. The Southern states decided to leave the United States. They formed their own group called the Confederacy. This decision shocked the country and led to one of the darkest times in American history. The United States was now split in two. One side wanted freedom for all. The other side wanted to keep slavery. This disagreement started a long and bloody war called the Civil War. which would decide the future of the nation. The fight between the North and South became a terrible war. It was called the Civil War. It began in 1861 and was not only about slavery, it was also about whether the country should stay together or break into two. Slavery, however, was the main reason for the conflict. The Southern states wanted to keep it, while the Northern states wanted it to end. President Abraham Lincoln led the North. He believed in keeping the country united and ending slavery forever. The Civil War was one of the darkest times in American history. It lasted until 1865. Many people died in battles. Families were torn apart. Towns were burned, and people suffered. But this war also brought new hope for real freedom. In 1863, while the war was still happening, President Lincoln made an important decision. He signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This paper declared that all enslaved people in the Southern states were now free. It was a major turning point in the war. Even though not everyone became free right away, this step gave strength to those fighting for justice. It showed that the war was now also about freedom and human rights. More people started to support the idea of ending slavery completely. In 1865, the North won the war. The Southern states gave up and rejoined the United States. That same year, slavery was officially ended by a new law called the 13th Amendment. It was a big step forward for the whole country. Now, the United States was one country again, and slavery was gone. But life was still hard for many people. The time after the war was called Reconstruction. The country had to rebuild homes, cities, and lives. It was not easy. Formerly enslaved people were now free and known as African Americans. But even though they were no longer slaves, they still faced many problems. They were often poor, treated badly, and not given equal rights by many people, especially in the South. Some stayed in the South and worked for very low pay on the same farms where they were once enslaved. Others moved to cities in the North, hoping for better lives. Many wanted to go to school and find real jobs. The government tried to help during this time. 2 more laws were added to the Constitution. The 14th Amendment gave African Americans citizenship. The 15th Amendment gave African American men the right to vote. These were big changes in the law. For a short time, things improved. Some African Americans were elected to public office. Others opened schools and businesses. Families started to build better lives. It was a hopeful time, but the progress did not last for long in many places. Many white people in the South were angry about the changes. They did not want African Americans to have the same rights. They created unfair rules called Jim Crow laws. These laws kept black people and white people separate in schools, buses, and more. These laws made life very unfair for African Americans. They could not go to the same schools, eat in the same restaurants, or use the same public spaces. Even though slavery had ended, equality had not yet come. This time was full of struggles, but it also planted the seeds for future change. African Americans did not give up. They continued to fight for their rights, and their courage would later lead to the civil rights movement in the 1900s. While the country was rebuilding, it also began to grow in other ways. New inventions and ideas changed how people lived and worked. This time was called the Industrial Revolution, and it brought a lot of change to the United States. Before the Industrial Revolution, most people worked on farms. But now, many moved to cities to work in factories. These factories made things like clothes, tools, steel, and machines. Life became faster, busier, and more connected during this time. Thanks to inventors like Thomas Edison, electricity became common. Homes were no longer lit by candles, but by electric light bulbs. Machines began to do work that people used to do by hand. This made production faster and businesses more successful. The invention of the telephone by Alexander Graham Bell made talking to people far away easier. Trains and railroads connected cities and towns. People and goods could now travel across long distances, bringing new jobs and opportunities for many families. Although this growth was exciting, it also had problems. Factory workers, including women and children, often worked long hours for little money. The jobs were hard and dangerous. Many workers lived in crowded homes with poor conditions. Still, people kept working hard, hoping for a better life. Immigrants from other countries came to America during this time. They brought their hopes, dreams, and cultures. They helped build the country and made it stronger and more diverse. This chapter in American history shows both pain and progress. The Civil War ended slavery, but true freedom still needed to be won. The country was changing fast, and many people were working to make America a place of fairness and opportunity. Electricity became more common in homes and cities. It helped light up houses, streets, and shops. Machines in factories also started using electricity. This made work faster and easier. Life was changing, and people began to depend on these new inventions. One big invention was the telephone. It was created by Alexander Graham Bell. The telephone helped people talk to others far away. Before the telephone, communication was slow. Now, people could speak across cities and states quickly and clearly. Another important invention was the railroad. Railroads connected different parts of the country. People could travel long distances in less time. Businesses could move products to other places. Towns and cities grew near train stations, and life became more mobile and connected. These new inventions brought many changes. They created jobs and helped build new industries. People began working in factories instead of on farms. But factory jobs were hard. Workers had to stay on their feet for many hours in loud and dangerous places. Most workers were paid very little. Many worked more than 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. Some workers were children. They didn't go to school because their families needed the money. The working conditions were often unsafe and unhealthy. Many of these workers were immigrants. They came to America from Europe, Asia, and other parts of the world. They left their home countries hoping for a better life. They dreamed of jobs, homes, and freedom in the land of opportunity. Immigrants arrived at places like Ellis Island in New York. They were checked by doctors and asked questions before entering the country. Some were turned away, but many were allowed to start their new lives in America with hope in their hearts. These immigrants helped build America. They worked on railroads and factories and on farms. They helped cities grow and brought new languages, foods, and cultures. But life wasn't easy. Many faced discrimination, poor housing, and low pay. Even with these problems, immigrants believed in the American dream. This dream was the idea that anyone, no matter where they came from, could succeed in America with hard work, honesty, and determination. Many people held on to that dream every day. During this time, the U.S. government encouraged people to move west. One law, called the Homestead Act, gave people free land if they built homes and farms on it. Many families traveled west to start fresh and find better opportunities. New farms, towns, and railroads were built across the western lands. The West became full of new life, but this growth came at a cost. Native Americans were forced off their land and pushed into small, poor areas called reservations. These changes hurt Native American tribes deeply. They lost their homes, hunting grounds, and ways of life. Some tribes fought back. A famous fight was the Battle of Little Big Horn, where leaders like Sitting Bull tried to protect their land and people. By the early 1900s, the United States had become one of the richest and most powerful countries in the world. Its factories made goods that were sold to other countries. Its military also grew stronger and more involved in global events. In 1898, the United States went to war with Spain. This war was called the Spanish-American War. America supported Cuba, which wanted independence from Spain. The war didn't last long, but it became an important step in American history. After winning the war, the United States gained control of places like Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. These new territories showed that America was becoming a global power. It was now involved in the affairs of other nations. While the country grew richer, many workers continued to struggle. Factories were still unsafe, and children were still working. Families were poor, and many people could not afford enough food, clothes, or medical care. Life was hard for millions of Americans. To fix these problems, workers began to speak out. They joined together and formed groups called labor unions. These unions asked for better pay, shorter hours, and safer working conditions. They believed workers deserved fair treatment and respect. One strong leader was Eugene V. Debs. He fought for workers' rights and helped build strong unions. He gave speeches, led strikes, and worked to make life better for working families. Many people listened to him and followed his ideas. Workers also demanded that children should not work in factories. They wanted schools for all children and better laws to protect families. Slowly, changes were made. Some laws were passed, and working conditions improved in some places, but the fight was not over. This time in history was full of both growth and struggle. America was becoming a modern country. It had new machines, big cities, and a strong economy. But many people were still poor and treated unfairly. The story of change would continue. During this time, workers were asking for better treatment. One very sad event happened in 1911. It was a fire at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in New York City. Many workers, mostly young women, died because the building was not safe. The doors were locked, and there were not enough exits. After this tragedy, people were very upset. It showed that factory safety was poor. This terrible event helped bring new laws to protect workers and make workplaces safer across the country. As America continued to grow, African Americans kept fighting for fairness. Even after slavery ended, they still did not have equal rights. Two important leaders during this time were Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. They had different ideas about change. Booker T. Washington believed African Americans should focus on education and work hard to earn respect. He thought success would bring change slowly. W.E.B. Du Bois disagreed. He believed African Americans should demand equal rights now and not wait for them. Both leaders helped open the door for the civil rights movement, which would come many years later. Their work gave people hope and strength. They showed that standing up for justice is important, even when the fight is long and hard. In 1914, a big war began in Europe. It was called World War I. At first, America stayed out of the war, but in 1917, the United States joined the fight to help its allies, such as Britain and France. American soldiers went to Europe, and the country sent supplies and weapons. America showed that it was becoming a world power. The war ended in 1918. Millions had died, but many hoped it would be the last war of its kind. After the war, President Woodrow Wilson helped start a group called the League of Nations. This group was meant to bring countries together and stop future wars. It was one of the first steps toward building peace around the world. In the 1920s, America was full of energy and excitement. This time was called the Roaring Twenties. Cities grew fast. People danced to jazz music, and new inventions made life easier. Many felt hopeful and believed anything was possible. One big change during this time was that women won the right to vote. The 19th Amendment made this possible. Women now had a voice in elections, and many began working in offices, going to college, and becoming more active in public life. But not everything was good. Many African Americans moved from the South to cities in the North during a time called the Great Migration. They were looking for jobs and better lives, but they still faced racism and were treated unfairly. Even in the North, black people were often kept out of certain schools, neighborhoods, and jobs. Still, they kept going, building strong communities, churches, and businesses. Their strength and courage helped shape the future of America. At the end of the 1920s, things began to go wrong. In 1929, the stock market crashed. This meant many people lost all their money in just one day. Businesses closed, and millions of workers lost their jobs across the country. This time became known as the Great Depression. It was the worst economic crisis in American history. People stood in long lines for free food, called bread lines. Some lost their homes and had to live in tents or on the street. Banks also failed. They ran out of money, and many people lost their savings. Even farmers could not sell crops because no one could pay. Families suffered a lot, and many lost hope. America was in serious trouble and needed help fast. In 1933, a new president took office. His name was Franklin D. Roosevelt, or FDR. He gave people hope with his calm voice and clear plans. He spoke to the nation on the radio in simple words everyone could understand. FDR created a set of programs called the New Deal. These programs were meant to help people, create jobs, and bring the economy back to life. It was a big effort to rebuild the country from the damage of the Great Depression. One part of the New Deal gave people jobs. The government paid them to build roads, schools, and bridges. This helped families earn money again and made cities stronger. People felt useful and hopeful for the first time in many years. Another important program was called Social Security. It helped older people who could no longer work. They were given money each month to buy food and pay rent. This made life safer for many families and helped people feel cared for. The New Deal did not fix everything, but it gave people strength and support during a very hard time. Americans learned that when they work together and help each other, they can survive even the worst challenges and build a better future. Some people could no longer work because they were too old or sick. The government helped them through new programs like Social Security. Banks and farms also received support so they could rebuild and recover from the Great Depression. President Franklin D. Roosevelt gave people hope during hard times. He spoke to Americans through radio talks called fireside chats. He used simple words to explain his plans. His calm voice made people feel safe and strong during times of trouble. While America was slowly recovering from the Great Depression, problems began in other parts of the world. In Europe, Germany was led by Adolf Hitler. He wanted to take over other countries. In Asia, Japan was also invading nearby lands. In 1939, World War II began in Europe. At first, the United States decided to stay out of the war. Many Americans didn't want to get involved in another world conflict. They hoped the war would stay far away. But everything changed on December 7th, 1941. On that day, Japan attacked a U.S. naval base in Hawaii called Pearl Harbor. The attack shocked the whole country. Many ships were destroyed and thousands of people were killed or injured. The very next day, the United States declared war on Japan. Soon after, it also declared war on Germany and its allies. America was now part of World War II. The country came together to support the war effort in many ways. People at home helped the soldiers by working in factories. These factories stopped making cars and started making weapons and tanks. Women joined the workforce in large numbers. One famous symbol was Rosie the Riveter, who showed women could do hard jobs too. Families also grew their own food in gardens and collected metal to help make supplies. Everyone had a part to play. The whole country worked together to help the military win the war and bring peace back to the world. In 1944, something very important happened. American and Allied soldiers landed in Normandy, France. This day is called D-Day. It was one of the biggest battles in the war and helped push back the German army. It gave hope to the world. In 1945, Germany finally surrendered. The war in Europe was over, but in Asia, Japan continued fighting. The U.S. made a very hard decision and dropped 2 atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These bombs caused great destruction and many deaths. After the bombs were dropped, Japan also surrendered. The war finally ended. World War II was over, and the world was forever changed. The United States came out of the war as one of the most powerful countries on earth. America's economy grew strong. Its military had become large and well-trained. The country now had a big voice in world affairs. But new problems quickly began. 2 superpowers were rising, the United States and the Soviet Union. They had very different ideas. The United States believed in democracy and free markets. The Soviet Union believed in communism and strong government control. These 2 countries did not trust each other. This began a new kind of war called the Cold War, which was not fought with guns. The Cold War was a fight between ideas, power, and influence. Both sides tried to show they were stronger. They built more weapons and tried to win the support of other countries. One big part of this was the space race. The United States and the Soviet Union raced to explore space. In 1969, the United States became the first country to land astronauts on the moon. This moment showed the world that America was leading in science and technology. Another serious event happened in 1962. The Soviet Union put missiles in Cuba, which is very close to the United States. This caused fear of nuclear war. After long talks, the crisis was peacefully solved, but it showed how dangerous the Cold War was. In Germany, the Soviets built a wall in Berlin to divide the city into East and West. The East side was communist, and the West side was democratic. This wall became a strong symbol of the Cold War and the division in the world. Even as America became stronger in the world, there were big problems at home. Racism and unfair treatment continued. African Americans were still not treated equally. Many brave people stood up to fight for justice, freedom, and civil rights. One important moment was the 1954 case Brown versus Board of Education. The Supreme Court decided that schools should no longer be separated by race. This was a big step toward ending unfair treatment in schools and giving every child a chance. In 1955, a woman named Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white man on a bus. She was arrested, and this led to the Montgomery bus boycott. African Americans stopped using buses to protest segregation and demand change. In 1963, a huge event took place. Over 250,000 people gathered in Washington, D.C. to demand equal rights. There, Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. He spoke about hope, freedom, and a better future for all people. The fight for civil rights was long and difficult, but it inspired millions. The United States was learning that freedom must be for everyone, not just a few. A new chapter was beginning, full of change and promise. Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech became a symbol of hope and change. His words helped people believe in a future where everyone is treated equally, no matter their race, background, or the color of their skin. The civil rights movement led to big changes in the law. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed. It said that no one could be treated unfairly because of their race. This was a big step toward justice and fairness. In 1965, another important law was passed. It was called the Voting Rights Act. This law protected the right of African Americans to vote. It made it illegal to stop people from voting just because of their race or color. By the 1970s and 1980s, America had become a leader in many areas. It was strong in science, technology, and culture. It still faced challenges like the Vietnam War and money problems. But the country kept moving forward and improving. America became known around the world for many things. It had strong businesses, smart thinkers, and powerful ideas. People in other countries looked at America with interest and hope, and many dreamed of visiting or living there one day. One reason America is powerful is because of its people. People from all over the world live in the United States. They bring their skills, food, music, and ideas. This mix of cultures helps the country grow and stay creative. Another reason is its economy. The United States has one of the biggest and strongest economies in the world. Big companies like Apple, Google, and Tesla are American. They lead the world in new ideas and inventions. America also has a strong military. It protects the country and helps keep peace in many parts of the world. The U.S. works with other countries and has bases and soldiers in many places to support global safety and security. The country also leads in culture. American movies, music, and clothes are popular everywhere. Hollywood films are shown around the world. Characters like Spider-Man and Wonder Woman are known and loved by people of all ages and backgrounds. Music from the United States is famous too. Artists like Michael Jackson, Beyoncé, and Taylor Swift are loved across the globe. Their songs are played in many countries and are part of everyday life for millions of fans. American food is also well known. Fast food like hamburgers, pizza, and fried chicken can be found in many countries. People enjoy American-style restaurants and often recognize big brands like McDonald's, KFC, and Starbucks. One of the biggest strengths of the United States is its diversity. People from many different cultures, languages, and religions live together. They celebrate their traditions, share their stories, and build a life in one country as neighbors and friends. America celebrates this diversity in many ways. Holidays like the 4th of July and Thanksgiving bring people together. There are also multicultural festivals where people proudly share their clothing, dances, and traditional foods from their home countries. Because of all this, America is often called the land of opportunity. People believe that if they work hard, they can achieve their dreams. This idea is called the American dream, and it brings hope to many people around the world. Immigrants play a big part in the country's success. They come with goals and work hard to build better lives. Many start small businesses, go to school, and help make their communities stronger. Their stories inspire others to dream big. Even though America is strong, it still has problems like every country. Racism still exists in some places. Many people continue to speak out and work hard to make sure everyone is treated fairly and has the same rights. Another challenge is income inequality. Some people in the United States are very rich, while others struggle to pay for food, housing, and health care. Leaders and citizens are working on ways to make life better for all Americans. The journey for justice and equality continues, but the country has made progress and is moving forward. People are learning from the past and trying to build a better future for the next generation. America continues to grow by welcoming people from around the world, creating new ideas, and learning from its mistakes. Its story is not perfect, but it is full of strength, hope, and the promise of something better. In America today, not everyone has the same kind of life. Some people are very rich and live in comfort. Others work hard every day but still struggle to pay for food, rent, or basic needs like clothes and electricity. One big problem for many people in America is health care. Doctor visits, hospital stays, and medicine can be very expensive. Many families worry about how to pay for these costs, especially if they do not have health insurance or savings. Another major issue is the environment. America is trying to use clean energy, like solar and wind power, to protect nature. Reducing pollution and using fewer fossil fuels is a big goal, but it is not easy and takes a lot of effort. Americans do not always agree on how to solve these problems. Some people believe in different solutions than others. These disagreements can create strong tension between political groups and make it hard to make decisions or pass new laws. Even with these challenges, America plays an important role in helping the world. When disasters happen, the United States sends food, supplies, and medical help to other countries. It works with nations around the world to solve global problems. American scientists and engineers work hard to find solutions to big issues like climate change, dangerous diseases, and space exploration. They create new technology and tools to help people live better lives now and in the future. Universities in America, like Harvard and MIT, are famous for education and research. Students from all over the world come to study there. They learn new skills and bring new ideas, helping America grow smarter and more connected to the world. Young people in America are passionate about the future. Many want to protect the planet, fight for fairness, and build new technologies. They believe they can make the world better with their actions, ideas, and strong voices. Technology in America continues to grow fast. From artificial intelligence to space travel, the United States leads in many areas. New inventions and discoveries are helping solve everyday problems and build a better future for all people. One of America's greatest strengths is its diversity. People from every part of the world live here. They speak different languages, eat different foods, and follow different traditions. This mix of cultures makes the country creative, colorful, and full of life. Americans celebrate their diversity through festivals, holidays, special events. On days like Thanksgiving or the 4th of July, people from all backgrounds come together. They share stories, enjoy meals, and feel united as one nation. People around the world often admire the freedom that Americans enjoy. In the United States, people have the right to speak freely, follow any religion, and chase their dreams. These rights are protected by the laws and values of the country. Even when life gets hard, America shows resilience. That means it keeps going and stays strong during difficult times. When people face trouble, they come together, help one another, and find a way to move forward and grow stronger. America's power also comes from its creativity. The country continues to make new ideas, music, movies, inventions, and art. This ability to keep creating new things is one reason why the world looks to America for inspiration and leadership. Of course, America is not perfect. There are still problems to solve and challenges to face, but it is a country built on hope, dreams, and hard work. Its story shows how people can grow stronger through struggle and change. From the first explorers to the modern world, America's history is full of courage and big dreams. It began as a small land of new settlers and became one of the most powerful and diverse countries in the world. But the story of America is not finished. Every day, its people write new chapters through their choices, actions, and dreams. They continue to build a better tomorrow, filled with kindness, strength, fairness, and exciting new possibilities. The world watches America with interest and hope. Many young people around the globe are inspired by the way Americans speak up for what is right, care for the planet, and work hard to make a difference in their communities. As new problems appear, America will face them with the same determination that helped it grow in the past. Its people will keep learning, leading, and believing in a better future for everyone, no matter where they come from. America is a place where dreams can come true. Whether someone is born there or comes from another country, they can find a chance to grow, succeed, and help others. That is what makes America special to many people around the world. The story of America teaches us that with hope, courage, and hard work, anything is possible. The future is bright, full of new chances, and it is up to all of us to build a better and kinder world together.